Hey friends, how's it going? Today we're talking all about resumes. I'll share my tips on how you can make your resume stand out so that you can land your dream job in tech. If you're new to my channel, my name is Johnny and I'm a software engineer at Meta. I've looked over hundreds of resumes as my time as an engineer, and I also wanted to share how I landed my first engineering job without a CS degree. At the end of this video, I'll go over that exact resume that helped me land my first engineering job and also the resume that got me into Meta. Okay, so let's get started and cover the various elements of what goes into a resume first. I would say the most important section of a resume is the summary. Think of it as a short elevator pitch of your professional life. In 1 or 2 sentences, you want to quickly capture exactly who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're perfect for the role. The summary is essentially a modern day cover letter, so you really want to spend some time on getting this right. The next up is the employment history. If you got relevant work experience, show it off. But even if you're coming from like a different industry, you still want to include it. At the end of the day, it's all about highlighting those transferable skills like project management, communication, or teamwork. Show that you can hold down a job and take on responsibilities and deliver results. Next, there's education. Sure, it might not be a deal breaker these days, but it's still a baseline. If you won any awards or study somewhere impressive, go ahead and mention those as well. Otherwise, keep it short and sweet. It's almost like checking a checkbox. You kind of just need it for most jobs. If you don't have any relevant education, you really want to highlight other parts of your resume that can prove to the reader that you can indeed code. For example, the next section is really all about side projects. This section can really make your resume pop. If this side project is already deployed or can be easily accessed on GitHub, they can prove that you're the type of person who takes initiative and builds cool stuff in your spare time. If you're lacking work experience or relevant education, this section is something you can work on right away. It's totally in your control. Finally, we have the skills section, listing all the tools, programming languages, or frameworks you know. Now, depending on the company or role, you might emphasize it a little more or less, but I honestly think this section is more important for SEO optimization than anything. So you don't really need to include this if it's not that important for that specific role. At the end of the day, a resume is essentially a story. So while crafting this story, I would say you want to clearly lay out 3 things: who you are, the target job, and the audience you're writing for. For example, if you're a new grad tailoring your resume for recruiters, it might look very different than the one you hand to a hiring manager or executives. The key is making it obvious you're a perfect fit for that specific role from the perspective of the intended audience. Okay, now let's jump into an example and look at a resume that got me my first engineering role without a CS degree. As you can see, the highlight was the summary. I made it crystal clear that although I didn't follow a traditional path, I put in hours to learn how to code. Next, I doubled down on the projects, including hackathon projects and bootcamp work. I put links to each of the projects so anyone interested could actually click and play around with what I built. Even though my past jobs weren't super relevant, I included them because they showed I could handle responsibilities and stay in a role long term. Education-wise, it wasn't exactly Harvard, so I kept it minimal. The important thing here is that I included going to a bootcamp and graduating college, which essentially just covered my bases. One interesting thing I also want to mention is that I added a skills section. Originally, when I was crafting this resume, I didn't have a large network, so I was planning to apply via job postings and online portals. And in this case, I think skill sections is important because these jobs online through job postings have automatic filtering based on like keywords. So SEO was really important. Networking is probably another video I should make in the future, but for now, I highly recommend you go through a referral route if you can. Going through job postings and just company websites is actually the harder way around. But yeah, so networking is by far the most effective means of landing a job, in my opinion. Okay, back to the resumes. Overall, I feel this resume is pretty good. Even looking back, I think the formatting is pretty good. The content is decent. I think I spent a long time on this resume. So now let's take a look at my resume that landed me a job at Meta. As you can see, this one is actually a lot less polished because it doesn't have like a separate skill section or like nice formatting. But by this point in my career, I didn't think I really needed any of that. Instead, I was really focused on the work experience above all else. As you can see, I listed my 3 positions at Capital One, which actually is just one position, but it really is highlighting my progression over the 4 years that I was there and the multiple promotions that I got. So the story that I was telling here is I really wanted to show the hiring committee that I could learn and grow quickly. I also leaned hard into my ability to handle like full stack projects from front end, back end, and even cloud infrastructure. And because I was going in for like a generalist, this was kind of like an important point that I was trying to make. And because of all of this, like this structure that I was trying to go for, I was able to remove a bunch of sections that I emphasized for the first software engineering resume. I was no longer like a junior engineer trying to scrape together what little experience I had into a working resume. And another important factor was that I wasn't really applying to roles anymore actively, because recruiters from major tech companies were reaching out to me directly by this point, which meant that I didn't really need to worry about things like SEO or keywords. So I could just simply remove the skill sections. Also, I had legitimate and very relevant work experience as an engineer by now, so I could remove all of the bootcamp experience and hackathon projects that I did, because to be honest, they weren't that relevant anymore. I essentially designed my resume to spark conversations inside of interviews. I wanted to encourage people to ask me about my current work or the promotions that I earned. As you can see, both resumes are totally different, but each of them helped me land the job that I needed for that time and that specific role. I really think a resume is just one piece of the overall puzzle when it comes to getting hired. Of course, you have to do well on the interviews and etc. But I do think that catering your resume is really important for the specific situation. If you get one key insight from this video, I would say that you shouldn't just copy some random resume template. You should really think about the 3 points that I mentioned: who you are, the target job, and the audience. If you apply these 3 points while writing your resume, it will definitely help you land that dream tech job. It really helped me along my journey, and I hope it helps you as well. Thank you for watching this quick video. If you like this kind of tech advice, I also got a video on preparing for interviews at FANG companies. Feel to check that out. Otherwise, drop a comment down below on topics you want me to also cover, and I'll see you on the next one.